Starship Vigilant, a Star Trek Adventures campaign. Yes, hello everyone. Welcome back.
Hello.
It's been a while. How's everyone doing? We've covered that, I think. So I suppose we should do things formally. So this is episode 42 of Star Trek Adventures with the Starship Vigilant. This is the 1st of September 2021. I am your GM, Steve, and I'm going to go round the table /room/ recording and just get you guys to introduce yourselves. Just tell me who you are playing today. So shall we start with Mike?
How did I know you were going to start with me first? Good evening, I am Mike and I'm playing Kaz, the ship's helms officer.
And next we have Karen.
I'm Karen, and I am playing Kolish, the Chief Security Officer.
And we have Kevin.
I am playing John Ostrand, and I might be the science officer. He says...
Not David Osterhagen.
David Osterhagen.
Yeah, not the Righteous Suicide Squad.
Fine, I can edit that. out. That's fine.
He won't know. He could edit it, but he won't.
I could, but I won't. And we have Russell listening in tonight as well. So hello, Russell.
I'm just drinking and hanging.
I'm drinking. I've got a beer actually. Has anyone else got a beer on the go? That's quite I've got a trip for beer tonight.
I've got a cup of tea.
Kevin's got a pot of tea. Right, so it's been a while. This is episode 42, as mentioned. So I think little bit of, I guess, first thing to do in the way of housekeeping is to have a bit of a recap. So, when we previously visited our heroes, you had been in the Candidate 3 system. The Vigilant had been deployed to the surface of Candidate 3 to locate. Do you know what? What the hell is the guy's name? Anyone remember? Do you know what? I have like a mental block when it comes to that guy's name. Assessor Credit, wasn't it? Assessor. There we go. So you'd been Tredic, yeah. So the Vigilant had been deployed to the surface of Candidate 3 to try and locate Assessor Tredic. In response to a plea for help from the ancient species known as the Tilikarl. Meanwhile, the USS Bonhomme Richard had ended up trying to prevent the newly arrived planet of Organ 3, which had been pulled through some sort of a spatial rift from crashing into the planet while you were on your mission below. And at the same time, the Thunderchild was engaged in trying to hold off a Romulan incursion. During the Romulan incursion, you'll remember that one of the warbirds had, in fact, turned on the other three, and you suspected that there was some involvement from Section 31, the operative Natalia Sigmund, who you'd encountered before. And as events came to a head, once again, a telepathic plea was received from the representative of the Tilikarl, and she had essentially reached out to you and had asked for your assistance. And having accepted her plea, then the Vigilant seemingly disappeared. Meanwhile, it had also been made clear that the USS Venture had been destroyed. If you remember, the Venture had been involved in evacuation of the population of Organ 3, a species who you may remember are called the Lormians. and the Thunderchild had seen the Romulans withdraw, and Vigilant Bonhomme Richard had limped back to Narendra Station, and that was the last we saw of the Vigilant. So, is there anything in that lot that you can think of that I may have omitted that you'd like to bring up? Does that kind of fit with your recollection?
Yeah.
Dark Lord and the end of the world. That's all I remember. No, that seems concise.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's obviously a lot of interference from the Romulans.
Yes. So again, as and again, speaking from remembering that you were actually last session, you were partially playing the crew of the Thunderchild. You're absolutely right. The Romulans again had made a play for Candidate 3, presumably because they were keen to understand something of the ancient technology of the Tilikal. And as I say, the Thunderchild had managed to. I seem to remember you had some quite good luck in engaging them in battle. I remember you used a tactic using decoy shuttles and I think some good dice rolling. Yeah, you had a minefield set up.
That's right.
And again, so the Thunderchild managed to basically dissuade the Romulans from proceeding any further. And then obviously once the rogue planet appeared and presumably the telepathic plea was heard throughout the system, again, certainly the Thunderchild heard it and the Bonhomme Richard heard it. And the Romulans, again, having been surprised by the involvement of the rogue warbird, had ended up falling into disarray, had obviously taken quite a bit of damage and had left. So we are, therefore, enough teasing. So we our scene opens on board the Vigilant. As all of your awareness comes back, the first thing you all realise is that you're in darkness. All of you have been, or at least those of you who are not seated. So, those of you who were not sat at a station will come round and you find yourselves essentially lying on the deck. And the first thing you are aware of as you come around, as your consciousness returns, is you're, as I say, struck by the fact that you are in darkness, and there is an acrid smell of what you assume is burning insulation, and there is a confused sort of a confusion of voices as consciousness seems to return to all of you more or less at the same time. Naismith's voice is the first thing you hear through the darkness, and he calls out status report. Now, as I recall, I would imagine those of you here were on the bridge. Presumably, Kalish would have been at her tactical station. Obviously, Kaz is at the helm, and I'm assuming Osterhagen would have been sat at a science station.
Yep.
And as you hear Naismith's voice, shaken but still commanding. That one's for Sean, in case he ever listens to this. Then you gradually, as your vision begins to clear, and gradually you begin to discern some light through the darkness, and you see the displays, the vigilance displays, bridge displays are there. Your vision clears, and although there is still darkness, and the bridge is basically in almost total darkness with the exception of readouts, and you see the readouts kind of distorted and flickering, but there is obviously there is something there. So you're not blind, you're just in darkness. So as I say, Naismith, not that you can see. Naismith, as I say, as your eyes begin to adjust now. Kaz, I'm presuming that as a Cation, your vision is probably better than most humans.
It is, but I can't actually. Yeah, it's got low light vision, I think.
Okay.
Trouble is, I can't actually find the.
Don't worry. It's not important. It's not important. I've got a character sheet.
Heightened senses, mate. It's got a package called Heightened Senses, which is sort of like low. Anyway, whatever.
As a Cation feline species, your eyesight is inherently better than human. So your vision clears somewhat. However, you realise that the darkness is not. It's not that you are on. That your vision has gone. It's just literally that the bridge is in almost total darkness. On the view, the main display is down. There's no static. It's just you can see the kind of edge of the panel.
Is my console active?
You've got some warning lights on it, but they are literally the kind of default power, if you like a. So
to use
a computer analogy, there's like a power light on, if you like. You can see there is the panel itself is completely dead. There's none of the interfaces are running. And again, that as the others around, as the rest of you kind of again, your vision clears. You're all pretty much in the same boat. So although Kaz's vision comes back slightly quicker, and Kaz, you look around and you can see there are a couple of the kind of generic crew members are kind of on the deck.
Is there any of the emergency lights active?
Nothing.
Nothing at all.
The other thing you notice as well is, and again, given your better senses, you also worryingly notice that you don't hear the life support processor. You don't hear the I don't want to use the word air conditioning because it's not air conditioning, but you can't hear the air pumps running. You are literally almost in total silence.
Is there I'm assuming there's sort of like a box or a sort of thing of cupboard or something on the bridge of emergency supplies. Something might have a torch and maybe a med kit in it or something.
Yes,
like
indeed.
that.
So yeah, absolutely. Yes, that's certainly reasonable. Yes, it's basically underneath to the left of the main display. There's like an emergency supplies kit.
I'll get up. I'll move over to there. And is everybody okay? Then I'll open up the cupboard and get sort of like the emergency gear out.
Okay. So, what would the rest of you like to do? Again, Naismith is obviously. I'll take Naismith's role for this. So he's still in his chair, and again he's sort of tapping on his displays to try and get some sort of life out of them. And he again says, "I need a status report from all stations."
Can I check to see if comm badges are working? Can I contact other security members via comm badge?
Good idea. Okay, go ahead. Yeah, you tap your badge.
So I'm gonna.
No, there's nothing. There's no.
Okay, there's no.
No, you don't hear the channel open because normally you would hear the sort of chirp as the channel, and there's nothing. It's just dead.
Okay. How many? Would I know how many sort of what would you call them? Sort of respirators, like spacesuits or whatnot, would be aboard the ship, and where they'd be? Is there enough
absolutely.
for the crew?
Yes, I have no doubt that Kalish would know that information. So again, there are there will be emergency lockers in all sort of primary, in all major locations. So the bridge, engineering, so on and so forth, as well as most of the corridors have panels behind the wall. So if you are trapped in a corridor section because of a decompression, there are emergency panels. So basically the wall panels lift out, and in there usually will be a couple of environment suits, and there are also muster points. So where the escape pods are located, there are emergency supplies. So one thing you are sure of is there is certainly plenty of equipment. Starfleet, make sure to provide ample safety equipment. So yes, that's not a concern, and you know where they are all located.
Then I'll start collecting them for the bridge crew and handing them out to the bridge crew, so that everyone's rushing to get one and they can focus on what they're doing.
Excellent
Steve.
idea. So basically, the one for the bridge is at the back of the bridge, behind or to the side of where the tactical, like the sort of the coffee table, like the tactical table is. Actually, hang on a minute. Why don't I? Yes, Mike.
Right. Just a quick refresh. I am the first officer, aren't I?
Yeah.
Correctamundo.
Right. Okay. Well, I'm going to go to one of the. Who's at the engineering station? Is it one of the lackeys
Okay. So Hendrix is at the engineering station. I've just brought up the bridge plan. I'm going to just take Plume out of there because I'm assuming Plume's probably not on the bridge at the moment. And I'm also going to take Giara as well because Giara probably isn't at the bridge. So there's some rando at the.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So Hendrix is manning the engineering station.
I'll tell Hendrix to I'll tell Hendrix to get down to engineering to and go and get there. Seeing we got no intership communication, go there and get a report and come back.
Okay. So Hendrix moves. Hendrix heads for the door, and basically the door is dead. There's no power to it. So she turns to you and says, Lieutenant. So you're Lieutenant Commander now, aren't you? Is that right?
I believe so.
Kaz Lieutenant Commander. I'm just gonna. I should know.
It would make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So Commander. There's no power to the door. So she says, I'll use manual override. So she basically there's a panel to the side of the door. She yanks the panel off, and there's like a hydraulic release, like a handle. So she starts pumping this hydraulic handle, and the door begins to inch open. But again, you're struck by how quiet everything is. There's, as I say, there's none of the usual background sound of engines or life support or consoles running. It's really, really quiet. Anyway, so she's working on the door, and she then kind of heads for and she leaves. Once she gets the door open wide enough, she leaves and heads for engineering, and you see her depart.
Yeah.
So Kalish, that's right. So Kalish heads up to the back, and basically behind this panel here, there's a life support station. So in the life support station, you have basically skin suits. So these are not the full kind of Starfleet space suits that you've seen.
Yeah.
These are kind of
sexy space suits, are skin tight.
These are kind of short term. These are designed for short term.
Steve, you know what's
survival.
really in there, don't you? You know what's
life
in there?
Support belts. Yeah.
Life support belts. Yeah.
I don't know how I feel about the life support belt. That might be a step too far, but possibly.
If it's skin tight, get some extra socks.
Of course, because this is Star Trek, of course they're all nicely color coded. Of course they're going to be. So in other words, Kalish hands out these suits, and they are so essentially they're a slightly bigger version of your the uniform. So in other words, so they're not entirely skin tight, but they're not a bulky spacesuit. They're just like a pressure suit, and they kind of. They're collapsible, so they're in once you hands them out, they're kind of folded down. But you can you open them up and step into them, and there's she hands out some respirator units. There aren't helmets in that storage, but there are these are kind of respirator units which you can put on, but you don't need to use them. I mean, you obviously are still breathing at the moment, so
but we need to be.
That's handy.
Can I tell if the air's getting stale?
Say again.
Can I tell if the air's getting stale with my
No, at the moment. The other thing, of course, is you don't know how much time has passed. So, from your perception, almost no time has passed. So, in other words, you remember the events that happened previously, and then this seems to be maybe seconds or minutes later.
Is there any way of telling how much time has passed? You kind of look at a watch and go, it's Thursday, I thought it was Tuesday, kind of thing.
You can, to be honest, if you're going to tell me that your character wears a chronometer, but I'm assuming it will be if it's an electrical, so in other words, unless it's a wind up timepiece, then it is also dead. So if you're wearing the equivalent of an Apple Watch or a smartwatch, and to be honest, most crewmen don't wear them because you don't need it. You just say, "Computer, what's the time?" But I'm quite happy if that's the thing he does. But again, unless it's an old chronometer like a wind up watch, then it's not dead.
This is a tick. I'm going to run my finger across the top of the console to see if there's any dust.
Oh, good. No. You do notice that the console also feels slightly warm. So in other words, again, you would probably interpret that as meaning that the power hasn't been out for too long because the ship isn't losing temperature, because obviously if you're in a
you say there's no air circulation.
Well, you can't hear the air processors because, again, one of the things about being on a ship is there are a lot of noises that go on in the background that you become accustomed to. So, there's always the hum of the power, the hum of the engines, there's the hum of the life support, and and it strikes you how quiet it is.
Right, it's got to be a ventilation port circulating the air on the ship. Put my hand over over one of the ports. Is there anything?
Sure. Okay. No, there's nothing.
There's no air movement at all.
No. Okay, so Kalish, you've handed out the skin suits. You know that in the corridor, so kind of out in the main corridor, there is environmental suit lockers. So if things get worse, you can get to spacesuits, because again the bridge has lockers within easy reach in case of emergency. So you know that they're. But at the moment, again, just emphasise that you're not detecting shortness of but it's a good precaution to take. And again, these suits are also somewhat insulated. So again, if the temperature does begin to drop, they will also keep you warm as well. So
yeah,
good precaution. All right. So yeah, obviously, generic science officer here is. I think I know who she's. What's her name again? So she's Tavak. So this is Tavak here. So she's again kind of futilely trying to reboot her console, trying to get some sort of information to you.
And we sort of determine what. I was going to think. You say all the circuits are dead. Is there no electrical power going through, or is it just?
Well, I mean, you're not an engineer.
No, but
all you can tell is that your console, none of your interfaces are active, because obviously the console's a touch screen. They're touch sensitive interfaces, and so basically they are dark. As I say, there is a like a kind of it's like a standby. Say standby light sounds really crap, but
Yeah, but surely part of our Starfleet training would have been how these consoles work, basic maintenance, stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, there's no power getting to it. There's no power, basically. That's what it is. There's no power.
Steve, once I've handed out the respirators, I would like to request from Naismith that I walk the ship and take a status report.
Excellent. Yeah.
And I'll recruit any other security officers that I come across. I will direct them to different places and then to report back. And so physically walk the ship for a status report.
Excellent. Good. Yeah, good thinking. Because again, the Vigilant is luckily is of a size where you can do that. So that is no compact. I prefer, but no, that's an excellent idea. So Naismith is excellent idea, Kalish. I'll leave that to you. If you can get me a status report as soon as possible, we'll convene back here in say 30 minutes, give or take. He says, looking at the dead displays and realizing that he doesn't wear a watch, but he says, well, yeah, find out what you can and get back to me within 30 minutes, and we'll have a quick briefing and see where we stand. And so, yeah, that's fine. So Kalish can do this. Basically, this door here is still open.
Yep.
If you give me a second, I'm going to just bring up the deck plan. Boom, 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 boom. So we can have a little look and see what the situation is. Right, if you look on roll 20, hopefully
Yep.
you can see that. So, so obviously you are Nya, and so main corridor. So if you remember, we talked about this I think last time, that I kind of have decided that this unit here has been converted to a briefing room. One of these days I will get around to amending the plan just so it shows that. But basically on this deck, there isn't actually a great deal. There's there's escape pods. And it's mostly tankage and sort of because again it's the top deck. So you've got the transport. There's a transporter bay behind the bridge, which is here, and then you've got like the captain's ready room is here. The captain's got his quarters, and the first officer's quarters I think are here. So there's, as I say, there's but essentially most of the critical systems are on lower decks now. Kalish also, of course, will know how to access the ladder wells. So there are, because again, if necessary, there are, there's access panels that you can get into. So, does she have any particular? Do you have any particular destination in mind, or are you just going to literally walk the corridors and see what you find?
So I would probably know where my security crew were stationed. So I think the first point of call would be to liaise with each of those and then give them a destination so we can cover ground quickly.
Okay, so I would suspect you probably will head for deck 2 because your security team have there is your standard order is that there's a muster point in the mess hall, which is on deck 2.
Okay.
So if I just bring that up and show you quickly, just to give you an idea. So if you this is the mess hall here. So again, given that you don't really there's not like a security section as such. You have an office, but your muster point is the mess hall because it's an open space.
Yeah.
And so that's where your team know to assemble if there's for some reason they can't make contact or whatever. So you suspect that they will try and make it to the mess hall to muster there. So I guess that's where you will probably aim for.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. So we'll assume. So Kalish goes off and is making her way aft, and she will go to one of the access ladders. So basically, you make for the turbo lift because there's a turbo lift on deck 1. You head for the turbo lift, and unsurprisingly, it doesn't appear, it doesn't respond. So you head aft, and there's an access. There's like a Jeffries tube. So you head back and pull off the panel and basically start climbing down to the deck below. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So back on the bridge. Anybody else got anything you want to do for the moment? So Osterhagen, what are you thinking?
I'm just trying to see if there's any way. I'm looking at I'm on my hands and knees at the bottom of the console to see if there's any burnt out, or it's just trying to find the source of the fact that there's no electrics.
Okay, why don't you let's make a roll. Let's make the first roll of the session. So I would suggest control and engineering would probably do the trick.
Task 2.
It'd be a difficulty of 1. Also, just to let you know, I have just to let you know that I have I've got 6 threat because there's 3 of you guys.
Yeah.
So my pool is 6, and I've got some momentum tokens here standing by. So I'll keep track if so. Right. So Kevin, that's a success, right? So you can, after some rooting around, you can see that there is no damage as such. You can see that the issue you have is that there is just no power, and the main power is offline, as is auxiliary power, which is slightly worrying because the Vigilant has an auxiliary power system. So if the main if the reactor goes offline, you have batteries, you have The impulse engines also provide power. So obviously the warp core is the major power source. That's the main engine, essentially. But if that goes offline, you do still have, usually there are several backup systems, and basically none of them seem to have kicked in.
Steve, just a quick question. My phaser, is the battery dead in that as well?
Excellent point. So if you check it, you can see that the phaser is actually still active. So it still has power. Obviously, they use independent power cells. So again, without knowing what the situation is, but yes, you can check it. And if you sort of turn it, you kind of check the settings, it does actually light up.
Oh, in that case, I'm going to go to the cargo bay and have a check the shuttle.
Mm-hmm. Fine, you can do that. So you tell Naismith what you're doing, and again, this, as I say, this door is already open. It's already propped open because Hendrix has kind of opened it manually, so the door is open. So yeah, you can tell Naismith what you're doing, and you head off. It will take you again. It will take you a few minutes.
Oh, walk there.
Yeah, because you're gonna have to walk there, and you're gonna have to find the Jeffries tubes and climb down the ladders and so on. So it's going to take you a few minutes. Okay. Right. So Kaz, what about you? Is there anything in particular you want to do?
I did think of something really smart and what's it, but now I can't remember what the hell it was. So, I'm just going to try and. Is there any? I don't know. Yeah. No, I'll get back to you on that. I'm just going to try.
Okay. No, that's fine.
Try and get my see whether I can work out get the console back online. Is there any? See if I can get, because there's no emergency power.
Yeah, and that is a concern. So again, all of you obviously.
Okay, let me come back to you. Is there going to be? You mentioned that the phaser is still powered.
Yeah.
Does that mean that active systems have been killed, but inactive systems are still? If you've got something that's been that was turned off.
Yep.
Would that still work? Would that work? Is there any way of finding out?
You don't know, because I mean the phaser has an independent power cell, right? So it has essentially has a I'm going to say battery is not, again, doesn't do it justice, but it has a battery.
No.
Everything you're seeing suggests that the ship's power network is just not working. So there's no power getting to anything. So I mean, when you say things that have been switched off, they're not going to work because they're tapped into. If they're tapped into the ship's power network.
Well, what I'm saying is, if we got survival gear, they would have.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Well,
check it because you're test it because you've got, as I say, you're wearing. I mean, presumably you've put on the skin suit with the handy little hole at the back for your tail to go through. And Kalish did hand out respirators, so presumably the respirator has, is powered, obviously. So do you want to try it?
Simple fact is the suit would probably have a torch attached to it. I'll just turn the torch on.
Well, you said you were looking in the survival box, didn't you? You said you were looking in the emergency. Okay, so let's go back to that. Okay, so you've gone back to this. You've whilst the others have gone off doing their thing, you've gone to the locker built into the bulkhead on the bridge. So in there are a couple of hand beacons, which is what the fancy Star Trek name for a torch.
Try that.
So if you turn those on, yeah, they work. So the hand beacons work.
Right. We've got survival gear that have got portable generators, yeah?
They'll have a power source. They'll have a battery built into them, essentially. But again, these will be, these are sci-fi batteries. So this is not AA batteries. These are, but they are an independent power cell.
What I'm getting at is, if we've got survival gear in the on the ship, we'd have emergency power generators, sort of like a camping generator. Can we get one up here? Can we get up here?
What do you want? Well, okay, first things first. So, did you say you wanted to try? If you try your life support unit, which is essentially there's a, as I said,
I don't need to try. I don't need to try the life support system because I tried the torch and that worked. That's what I wanted to know.
So you're asking about portable generators. I mean,
Yeah.
I have no doubt, but then to be honest, they would probably normally be replicated if they were needed. However, yes,
Surely
I'm
there'll be
sure in one of the cargo bays there is emergency. Yes, I'm sure. I'm sure in a cargo bay somewhere. The only problem you've got is how are you going to find it if you can't access a manifest?
Well, there's got to be survival gear on the runabout.
True. Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I know
Sure.
that ship
Is that where you want to go?
Yes, because if there's survival gear on there, then if a runabout with systems were shut down, they're still active. If we can find some way to tie
Well, you
those
say
into
that, but you can certainly go and check it out.
yeah,
Steve?
I'm going to go and check.
So part of my instructions for my security team, we're a well-oiled crew, aren't we?
Indeed, and certainly they're very worried about pissing you off. So
So,
right, so okay, we just switch scene quickly. So you're now in the if you want to if you check on Roll20, so you're now in the mess hall. So you've made it to the mess hall. So as you've gone through, so you've gone aft on deck 1. You found a you've opened up the manual access panel. So on your way down the corridor, you encountered a couple of crew members. They seem to be a bit banged up, but not badly hurt. So obviously, you probably just told them to, get to your stations, you basically sent them on their way. And as you've gone through the rest of the ship, similar encounters, you've come across a couple of crew members in the corridors who are obviously slightly confused, but obviously they are Starfleet personnel, so they have pulled themselves together. You came, as I say, you came across a couple of crew members, and again, you just directed them to go where they should be. And as you reach your vessel, sure enough, your security team have assembled. So just as a reminder, you've got quite a decent squad actually, because you've got so as you enter the room, you see crewman Morgan, Imbram, you've got Elias, Marconi, and also a couple of your tactical people as well. So you've got Reese, who's your one of your tactical specialists, like weapons specialists. And they basically maintain because obviously the Vigilant has got experimental weapon systems. So you've got about 6 or 7. You've got 7 of your team.
okay.
Out of a total of how many have you got in total? You've got 1, 2, 3. Yeah, you've got about 12, I think, in your department, and 7 of them have already reached the mess hall.
Right, lovely. That's fantastic. Okay. So my orders are going to be to them. So I'll gather them in. I won't wait for the others. I'll say to them, let's get this started. There's no time to lose. I will order them. I'll split them up because we've got sort of deck 2 and 3, haven't we? Deck 1 isn't really much of an issue, is
there's
it?
not much on deck 1. Deck 2 and 3 are the main areas, and deck 4 is basically like the bottom of the shuttle bay, and there's a few, maintenance spaces, but there's not a great deal down there either.
Yeah, so I'm going to...
Obviously, the steel's down there, but,
So I'm going to... I'll brief them. I'll split them into 2 groups, one for deck 2, one for deck 3, and then give them sort of coordinates or corridors that each of them need to walk down. I will tell them that every crew member they come across, they need to advise them to put on their survival suit.
Yeah.
And then what I want them to do is I want them to direct the crew to have, I guess, a non-essential person from each sort of department equally spaced out in corridors so that we can relay messages verbally across the ship.
Excellent. Excellent plan. Yeah, that is absolutely
people
fine.
Running around unnecessarily in the dark or whatnot, right. That we can just pass messages throughout the crew.
Absolutely perfect. Yeah, absolutely perfect. So yeah, no problem. They get onto that. Now also you notice, as Kaz has noticed, a couple of them are carrying hand beacons, which are basically the torches.
Yeah.
So again, that you can again, there are lockers all through. Every corridor has every corridor and every major habitation area. So like the mess hall, for example, has a hidden emergency locker, so you can break out more hand beacons. so that they will have you will basically end up with torches that you can use to communicate. So not communicate, to basically to communicate, because essentially the lights are still off. There are the emergency lights not even on. That's one thing to notice. So even the emergency lights are not on. However, obviously everyone's always have become somewhat accustomed, and there is some residual lighting from, as I said, some of the sort of low-level instrumentation. There are sort of power lights kind of flickering, and there is a little bit of illumination. But once you've broken out the hand beacons, it becomes a lot easier to get about, because obviously, they're both very powerful torches. And if you've got people at intervals down the corridors, then of course, essentially you're able to have a look around and see what's going on. So that's a good plan.
Brilliant. And then I will probably head back, and I'll take a couple of random crew members that I come across with me to be stationed on the upper deck, so that they can form part of the relay to getting messages to the bridge.
Excellent plan.
And report all of that back to Naismith.
Brilliant. So, okay. So, yes, indeed. So you instigate that, and within a couple of minutes, Naismith or one of your team. So, and what they do is they round up the rest of your team. Again, have begun to appear. Obviously, they were all making their way to their muster point. So, within a couple more minutes, you have all of your people are engaged in that activity.
Brilliant.
And so, as you, so you're going about your business there. So next, Osterhagen. So what you said you were heading down to the
cargo base to check out the shuttle.
Right. So okay. So in fact, you and Kaz basically are heading to the same location essentially. So as I say again, you're using the Jeffrey's Tube network to get about. I'm just going to put you onto this map here for a minute. Bear with me. And there we go. Okay. So the ship has again there are stairwells and there are Jeffrey's tubes, because again you've tried the turbo lifts when you were on on deck one, and the turbo lifts are definitely not working. However, there are obviously access ways that you can use to get about. So it takes you a good few minutes to basically go and crack open the wall panels that hide these, stairwells and ladder wells, and you make your way down. And as you're going through the corridor, initially you do, as with Kalish, you come across a couple of, confused-looking crew members, but they are trying to find their way to their emergency stations. Again, bearing in mind that the corridors are all dark. However, they crewmen also have begun to open up these emergency lockers and pull out hand beacons. So again, as you're going through the ship, you begin to see more and more of these torch beams as the crew are kind of moving about. And again, you presumably, both you and Kaz, I'm guessing, will also relay the order to them to put on survival suits just as a precaution. And after a few minutes, you both end up on deck 3. So if you're looking at that map, this is the shuttle bay. Now, obviously, bearing in mind our ship has a slightly different configuration. So the where you've got the shuttle here, you've actually got the runabout is docked here. And if you remember, the runabout is basically tucked into the bottom of the ship. It kind of comes up through so if you like, it's hard docked. But obviously the door to the runabout, and obviously, is at deck level. So what is it you want to do? So you get into the bay, and again, as with all the other spaces you've come across, it's fundamentally in darkness.
Essentially,
so what would you like to do?
If it's been an attack on the ship systems, bearing in mind that the laser, they called the handheld phasers, are working.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering whether there's any power in the runabout.
Okay.
You need to start, as I say, it's probably, if it's docked, it's shut down. So we need to be you need to bring it up to power.
Well, both you and both you and Kaz arrive in the shuttle bay within a couple of within a minute of each other because you're both heading for the same location. And yeah, I mean, probably surprises you somewhat. But again, I'm assuming that by now you've all got hand beacons, so you obviously will see her coming because of the light. And as you're so you go to the lock of the runabout, and it's essentially the door is dead. You try and like push because there's like a control panel to open the door, and it just does nothing. It doesn't beep at you or anything. It just doesn't open.
Is there a window to look through to see if there's any lights on inside?
Yes, I mean obviously the runabout does have a big has like a view screen at the front. A view screen. There's a big window in the front of the runabout. Hold on a minute.
Yeah.
Just for reference, let me just bring up the runabout plan, just because it's probably easier just to show you. So I'll just go to that. Right. So basically, here is the kind of there's a big window here, and as I say, if you imagine looking at that as it is, if you imagine that is exactly what it is in the shuttle bay, and essentially it's kind of hard docked in the bottom of the ship. So when you launch the runabout, you have to basically you essentially seal the shuttle bay, and the runabout sort of drops out the bottom. There's literally it's literally kind of mated into the ship.
When it docks, you don't see the lower engines.
No, exactly. So it's the main cabin you see. This is where the door is. I think essentially here. And again, you can see there's windows here and here. So you can see inside, but it seems to be dark. Again,
is there a manual override to the door?
There is. So to the side of the panel, to the side of the door, there's a hatch that you can pull out, and there's a manual. It's not, again, I hate to use the word pump, but it's a hydraulic. It's a hydraulic pump. So you sort of prime the lever a couple of times, and that releases the seal, and you can then the two of you can sort of push the door open with a bit of effort, and you can get inside.
Go inside and just double check there's just trying to find a link between what's happened and if there's a pattern. So the small units on the phasers are working, but the ship's down.
So try and power the ship up.
Yeah.
Okay, so you get into the pilot's seat and nothing happens. No power at all. It doesn't even. It's not even like a dead battery. Like it doesn't sort of go. It just does nothing. There's just nothing there because again, it's all. The controls are touch operated, and there's just nothing. It's dead as a dodo.
I'm going to the survival gear then.
Okay, so you go into the. Again, I'm presuming if you go to the back section here, there's a proper locker. So, and as you say, you're looking. So, what did you say you were looking for? You were looking for a portable power unit.
Portable power generator. Yeah.
Okay.
It's probably if you've got sort of like emergency. To say sort of like it's basically camping gear, and so you'd have.
No, I understand. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so you open this survival locker in the back of the runabout. This is obviously the kind of conference, as you know. There's like bunks here and stuff. So in one of these in this compartment, let's say storage compartment, and yes, indeed, you've got there is literally a generator. It's like the size of an ice box. If you imagine, it's like a portable power unit, and actually, to your surprise, it does power up. So if you activate it, it does power up. And in that compartment, you've also got, as you rightly say, you've got like some survival shelters. That's like essentially they're pop-up tents, but they're sci-fi pop-up tents. And you, as you say, you've got various other survival gear in there. But yes, the portable generator is working.
Okay, right. Isn't the medical? Okay, another question. The medical bay would it have its own power supply for the life support systems that are in the medical bay?
So the medical bay should have its own. So sick bay has its own auxiliary system. So as mentioned, the ship has 3 primary sources of power. So you have essentially you have the warp reactor, which is what produces the majority of the power, and it produces power to the engines and the weapons and everything else. You then have the impulse engines, which are also capable of putting power into the ship's networks. They can, quite often you use the impulse engines to provide auxiliary power, and you have an auxiliary power system which is essentially runs off batteries. So the ship has a number of batteries which are there to store energy generated by the antimatter engine when it's running. But again, and so sickbay has its own dedicated auxiliary system, which again means it's got its own batteries that provide a couple of hours worth of power in case of a power outage. But I want to emphasize it's very, 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 very unusual for a ship to lose all of its power systems.
Yeah.
Because normally, if the warp core is offline, the batteries or the impulse engines will work, or the batteries have got power. But this, at the moment, you just seem to have nothing.
I'm going to take the generator.
Yeah.
And plug it into the runabout systems.
Okay.
Power the systems up and get
Sure. Okay.
If I can get a readout on the status of the antimatter on the ship. Obviously, this one's the status of the antimatter in the reactor.
Sure. Okay. So you go back up to the flight deck.
I just want to see whether it's been nullified or something like. Anyway, okay.
So you go back up to the flight deck, and that's going to be a. Let's have a look. Let me see what you got, because you're going to have to basically jury rig something.
Well, I've got Osterhagen
because obviously the two. Say again.
Osterhagen should be able to give me a hand, shouldn't he?
Yeah, indeed. So I was going to say, so what we'll do is let me just have a look and see let's see what kind of.
And you don't want to power the whole ship, do you? And sort of lose power that way. You just want like a control panel or something, right?
Just power the runabout. Like power the runabout.
Yeah, but you don't want to power the whole runabout, do you? You're
I was going to say
no.
It's on the runabout, be a smaller system, surely.
I mean, to be honest, all you could probably do anyway is, as Karen says, you could probably put some juice to the
but the point is, if
panel
you get the runabout,
just to see if you can get sensors or something up. You can't power the whole runabout because it will just drain. This portable power unit is really designed to run, lights and heaters and stuff like that. It's not designed to power a ship. So you're going to be very judicious in what you use.
If we can get the runabout systems up, and if we can get the runabout and get it up and running, not necessarily with a thing. If we can get its own internal systems up and running, maybe that will give us somewhere to start. Get the rest of the ship.
Right. So this is going to be a daring and engineering challenge. This is going to be a difficulty of 3. So this is going to be difficult because this, as I said, this system, this power unit, although obviously the interfaces and that are, common and so on, this is not designed to do what you're trying to do. So it's going to be difficulty 3. The complication range I am going to increase by 2. So the complication range is going to be 18, 19, 20. So if you roll an 18, 19 or a 20, something bad will happen.
Okay.
And Kevin can assist. So it's up to you who takes the lead. So who's got the best daring and daring and engineering, would you say, between the two of you?
I've got
daring. What, daring?
10 daring, 2 engineering.
And that's the same for both of you, I think. So it's basically it's up to you who wants to take the lead. It doesn't really matter. But obviously, whoever takes the lead, then the other person can provide, assuming that you succeed, or rather, assuming that you get at least one success, the person assisting you can provide an additional D20. So, in other words, whoever's going to take the lead on it will roll 2 D20 as usual. You can spend threat if you want to give me threat to buy some more dice to roll.
Do either of you have a relevant focus?
Okay, so looking at... Sorry, go
on. I've got helm operation, but I don't think that would work. Small craft pilot may... No, that's piloting, isn't it? That's not systems.
Yeah.
Systems.
Well, if you're trying to plug it into the helm itself, I think helm operation is...
I agree.
Because that's the control panel you're trying to hook it up to, right?
Yeah, totally agree. You can use that focus because if you tell me that you are going to try and just activate the helm console, because the helm console will give you at least sensors, then I will allow that focus.
Then I would suggest Kaz makes the initial roll then, because you're then rolling 2 dice that could possibly roll under your focus.
And then I would also suggest, knowing my luck, is rolling, spending some threat.
Okay, so if you want to give me some threat, so I think 2 threat will give you an extra d20. So do you want to take that?
Yes.
Yep. All right. So I've added 2 threat to my little threat pool.
Okay. And so it's just roll the arrowhead, isn't it?
So what you do is, you make sure you've ticked your 2 your attribute and your discipline, and then just click on the make sure it's got 2 highlighted. Just roll that.
You want 3, don't you? 3 highlighted.
No, because Kevin will roll separately for that.
But he bought an extra dice.
Oh, he did. Apologies. You're right. So yes, you're right, Mike. Yeah, click 3.
Okay.
So 3 dice you're rolling, but 3 you're rolling. So go for it.
1 success.
Right.
Okay, Kevin, you can roll to assist. Now you're going to have to roll really well here. Now, Mike, you can give me more threat if you want to try and re-roll that. But
you want to re-roll it? Kevin's rolled a 1.
What 2 successes. Okay. What'd you get? Okay, right. So this situation is what we call it's going to be succeed at cost. So obviously, so you've not made the 3 to make the roll successfully. You haven't rolled any complications, but basically what this means is, so you get a result, but you've it's not quite as good a result as you were hoping for. So what happens is you plug in this power unit into the console. So you basically pulled off the maintenance panel at the side. You managed to plug in the connector, and you turn on the generator. And sure enough, the runabout panel, the helm panel, sort of and it lights up.
Steve, sorry, mate.
Yeah, go for it.
I hate to be this guy. You said there are no complications.
There are no what, sorry?
You said there were no complications.
Yeah.
But there are. If it's 18, 19, or 20, those 2 zeros are both 18s, I think. Are
they? Interesting.
So, Mike, you may want to re-roll those dice.
Yeah.
Yes,
Do you know what? You're right. Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah. No, you're right. I'm just looking at that now. Yeah, I'm just looking at because I look at the code
being given to the teacher, isn't it?
What's that?
The sound of an apple being given to the teacher.
No, it's not, because Mike's going to re-roll them, right, Mike?
Yes, Mike.
Yeah.
Give me 2. Give me 2 threat, then, and you can re-roll that.
Yep.
Sorry, Steve. I didn't mean to interrupt, mate.
No. Again, this, I'm a bit rusty, so that's good. Works for me.
Hey.
There
4 successes.
Right. Okay. So that was definitely worth you spending it. However, I'm going to then spend 2 threat to bring back in a complication. So though you averted those complications, I'm going to spend 2 threat to go with what I was going to go with originally. So, right, Mike. So you put the unit in, and sure enough, the panel lights up, and essentially you're kind of almost shocked because the inside of the cockpit sort of lights up as the panel comes on, and you have some power now. The only problem you've got here is that this power is going to last for a very short time, and also you are going to burn out this power cell is going to burn out. It's not designed for this output. So you've pretty much got one shipboard task that you can attempt before this thing gives out. So what is it you would like to do? You have got sensors, limited sensors. You've got obviously you've got like the ship helm controls, but they're not much use to you. I presume you're not going to want to undock the ship with no power.
No.
So realistically, you've got communications. If there's anybody to hear you, because obviously you've got like the panel's got comm, but you don't know whether that will broadcast or not. But you've got that option. You've got sensors and you've got helm operations, and that's about it.
Can I put the ship into emergency startup?
Okay, is that what you want to try and do?
Can I do that? Can I try and put the ship into?
Well, I mean, you can essentially, you've got the helm console, so you can essentially push the ignition button if that's what you want to try.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So you do that, and it just doesn't start, and the panel dies,
Bollocks.
and your the power unit is dead.
Okay.
So the panel fades, and again, you check the readouts. Well, you look at the power emergency power unit, but it's just a piece of metal. It's dead. There's nothing there at all.
I can see that it's dead. Can I work out? Can I get some hint as to why the system didn't go? Why the system?
Yeah. Do you want to make a okay? So if you want to try with, just give me a difficulty 1. Actually, no. It's going to be a difficulty 0. I'm going to be nice to you because it's not that difficult a thing to figure out. So if you want to just roll for me, I would say probably insight and con will do it.
Okay.
So you've got a target of 13, difficulty 0.
Nice.
Okay, so that is going to... Oh, nicely done, Mike. So that gives you 3 points of momentum. Very nice.
Hey.
Okay.
Right, so you've now got... I've got the counters here. So you've got 3 points of momentum in your momentum pool. You can't see me putting them on the table, but I'm putting them on the table. So. Trust me. Right.
We can't see them behind the shadow of your threat.
I might should write that down probably. Okay, so you've got 3 points of momentum, Mike. Right, so or the insight this has given you is that the ships, both the ships, antimatter reactor, because don't forget, because obviously the runabout has its own micro warp engine, is completely drained, and additionally, the batteries are fully drained. And so, in other words, similarly to the rest of the ship, the runabout's power systems are completely useless.
So the what I'm trying to get at is the antimatter is it's basically I can't think of the term of it.
Inert.
That's the fella. It's inert. There's no.
Well,
it's no.
You don't know if it's you. You don't know that it's inert, but what you know is that the reaction, the antimatter reaction chamber, the warp engine is not putting any power out.
No, the question.
Even in the runabout when it's docked, even if the ship is, because the ship obviously generates its own power. So when it's docked, although it does plug into the ship's, systems and it gets data updates and whatever, but basically the runabout has its own power system, generates its own power from an antimatter reaction, and that is completely dead, completely inert is the word I'm going to use. And that's why the start didn't work, because it's like a ignition with a dead battery. You can push the starter button and nothing happens because there's just nothing for it. There's no power to kick off.
It's like trying to start a car with no fuel.
Yeah, but essentially. So
now the question is what's causing it? Because we know, could we be an area of space or something? Because obviously we know we've gone somewhere. Would be an area of space that's smothering matter-antimatter reactions or power reactions.
Hold that thought. I'm just going to take a little break for 2 minutes. I'm just going to have a little think about that between yourselves. I'm just going to take a little break for 2 minutes while I go and make a quick cup of tea, and then we will come back. So you can feel free to chat amongst yourselves about that, and I will be back in 2.
So, Mike, how long can we survive oxygen-wise, and also temperature-wise? Right?
It's going to be up to Steve, to be honest with you. I mean,
okay.
You in a situation like this, you're going to survive as long as the story demands.
Yeah, true.
So,
can you see any way of us getting power back, or is that going to be out of our hands?
The way things are going, whoever that was. You all hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. The only thing I can think of is maybe we're being affected by some external forces, because doesn't seem to be. If you know what I mean. If we're in a force field, that's generating like a null field, that we know we've gone somewhere.
Yeah.
No,
Are you talking spacewalk then, Mike?
Space. I don't know. Don't. I'm just trying to work out if we've gone somewhere into another space. You know, like that Voyager episode when they went, species whatever they were, when they
Species
went into
8472.
the ones where they went into fluidic space.
Yeah.
But the properties of that space operated different from where Voyager come from.
Yeah.
If we're in something similar and our energy supply is non-compatible with where we are, that's what I'm saying. It might be but there again, that doesn't supply why the batteries to work.
Yeah. But knowing what's outside might help us. Because what I was actually thinking of doing, you might actually know this, is there anywhere on the ship that there's like a viewport that I can physically look outside? Is there a window anywhere on the ship?
I would assume there is. I'm just
because I'm gonna. I think Kolisha's gonna head there and see if she can visually see anything outside the ship.
The other thing is just go to an airlock and open the door with a suit on, of course.
True. Yeah. If there isn't a viewport, then I'll try that. I think
there is a viewport, but I don't. You know, most of the stuff that you see in the show was on view screens and stuff like that. But I'm sure there's got to be a viewport somewhere.
Yeah, I'll give that a go. I guess that's what I'll do with my person.
Bearing in mind you're wearing a spacesuit anyway, you can press the go in a thing, take a look outside in an airlock, go and open an airlock.
Yep, that'll give us a bigger range of view as well, won't it?
But also, if what we never asked is, are the tricorders working?
I did ask a couple of times, but I think it slipped under the radar. But that is something we need to figure out. If the
tricorders are working, we can sort of like at least get minimal sensor data.
Yep.
So that's the thing to do when he comes back, is to say, right, okay, we're going to go to the airlock and just take a peek outside, because I would hope it's not fluid space, because you'd get crushed by the fluid as it all came in as you open the door.
I mean, you guys are probably close to an airlock, right? So one of you guys could probably do that.
Oh yeah, we're in the shuttle. I mean, we're in the shuttle.
Because I think I'm back on the bridge. So, after I asked about the phaser, if that had power, I asked about the tricorder, but I don't think it was heard.
So we'll ask dilithium crystals.
What was that, Kev?
How do you recharge?
I'm not sure whether you can still do it. I know they because it's usually replaced. Crystals are usually replaced, because in the world of antimatter, in the universe where they've got antimatter and in unlimited supply, they still need a fuel source, and they still need something for you to run out of to tell a good story.
Yeah.
So I think that's where the dilithium crystals come in. They, when something goes wrong with the ship's engines, it's usually the dilithium crystals.
Do we have
crystals?
I'm getting the feeling we're either going to need to employ outside help or abandon ship.
Where we're going to go? Because we don't have to know
what's outside. We'll have to look what's outside.
As I say, if the only problem with that is if the runabout is dead on fuel, so are the lifeboats.
Hello?
Hey, Steve.
And we were going to abandon ship, self-destruct and abandon ship.
We've already set it going, Steve. It's too late, mate.
You still there, listening?
Yeah. How's it going? So, right, what do I do?
6 seasons of Breaking Bad, I suppose. Anyway, don't ask me where that one.
Okay, so you're on the runabout. You're on the runabout, and you determined that the runabout's power systems are dead.
Yeah. So what we're going to do is, at least immediately, are the tricorders working?
Okay, so you pull basically again the runabout has in the emergency locker. So obviously you have tricorders. The tricorders are working.
Okay.
Is it just
Okay,
me?
yeah.
Was it wrong that I always imagine the runabout is a bit like the Eagle Transport? You're going to have some of the old stun guns hooked over the little rod as well. That'd be good.
Yep. Right. So, Leash is going to. We're wearing suits, aren't we? We put on emergency suits. They survive in a vacuum.
No.
Right,
What they're
okay,
designed to
good.
do is to. I mean, you can put on. You can go find environment suits. These are survival suits. These are designed so that if there is a hull breach, it will keep you alive for a minute or a couple of minutes to get to safety.
Right.
But it's not going to. You need a full environment suit to go to go into full vacuum. So.
Okay. Well, Kalish is going to go down to the airlock, suit up, and open the door.
Well, first of all, Steve, is there any, just out of curiosity, because I'll probably end up doing that anyway, are there any viewports? Like, is there anywhere I can physically just look outside?
That's a really good question. I am sure the Defiant's a funny one. It does have windows. So if you look on the model of the Defiant, it does have windows, but I'm not really sure. Let me have a look. Excellent point, Karen. Well made. Let me have a little look and let's figure it out. I would say yes.
I'll be opening an airlock and just.
I would say yes. There are windows because certainly when you look at the model, there are windows on the model. However, the Defiant's got is a funny bird because most of its structure is sort of the external structure is engines.
Yeah.
So as far as I know, the only place where there could be windows are basically on the underside. Let me just switch over to the old. Mike, feel free to correct me if you think I'm wrong, but I think if you look at the model,
you say the windows, but they could be because I know the Defiant obviously had a cloaking capability. It could have something to do with transmitting a visual element.
If all I was going to say is that. Yeah, I'll tell you where the window is and a good reason for there to be one there, or a viewport at least.
Yeah,
in the shuttle bay, because surely you would have a visual.
That's a good point. So I think you're right. So if you look at the plans, I don't think. Yeah, I think Mike is right.
Yeah.
I think the only place I can think of where, I would say not even that. I reckon. Hang on, I'm going to check deck 4 because what I'm saying is, if you look at the layout of the ship. Everything that is habitable is inside. So if you look at the ship, you've got engines here. So this is all engines. This is all engines. You've got machinery all around the outer hull here. This is all machinery. This is all machinery. This is all machinery. So around here is all machinery. And as you can see, the habitable spaces are all internal. There's nothing actually looking out. So even here, you've got this is all machinery spaces, machinery. And I'm going to look on deck 4 because I think you're right. I think there might possibly be a.
That's the only place because the same.
Makes sense. No, it makes sense.
Most of what you've seen in the ship has been on view screens.
Okay, right. So
it's going to be if there was going to be an observation port, it would be in the. I would say it would be in the shuttle bay, so you can have like you have a landing officer.
Okay, I am going to argue that you are correct. So I'm going to say that you are correct. So, no, yeah, I'm going to argue with myself that you are correct. But I think I'll tell you where the only place I think. Yeah, I think. Let's have a look. Yeah, I think you're right. I think that makes sense. I'll allow it. That makes sense to me. I think the only place I can think of where there would be some sort of visual port is going to be in the shuttle bay, deck 3. So sort of somewhere in this space, which is basically where you are, right?
Yeah, it's basically just an observation port, so you can, so that so the deck officer can, or the landing officer, or whatever you want to call it, on the ship, can look out and see the shuttle approaching.
Okay, I think let's go with that. That makes sense to me. I can't quite see where it is on that plan, but again, bearing in mind our layout is a bit different from the. Because I think actually the shuttle control office is on the deck above, isn't it? It's on deck 3 up there, deck 2 rather up there.
Mm-hmm.
But okay, I'm going to. Oh yeah, fine. Bottom line is the shuttle is the runabout is docked into the bottom of the ship. So yeah, I'm going to argue that that's right. So okay, fine. Do you want to go and have a look outside? Who wants to go and check it out?
Well, Kaz and Osterhagen are both down there, so one of those two probably.
I'll go.
Right. So you basically go to the back of the shuttle bay, and there is a shuttered observation port in the control. There is a control panel, a control room for the deck officer to manually sight incoming shuttle. And so you're gonna open up the cover because it's got like a you have to basically manually open the thing, but okay. So let me have a little look. Okay, so I don't know. You may have seen this image already, but what you see is so the Vigilant is. You look outside, and the first thing you can see is that the space is not black. So again, bearing in mind this viewport is quite small. So if you can see that, I take it. Can you all see that image, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so if you imagine that is the shuttle bay is there on the Vigilant, right? So you're looking through a small port there, looking down. So you're not looking. You're just basically looking straight down. And what you see is, first thing you notice is obviously that the space is in fact suffused with light. It's not black, it's not dark, it is actually lit. You can see that there is light permeating the whole space. The other next thing you notice is that everywhere you look, you can see these large crystals. Well, they look like crystals, and there seems to be. Certainly as far as you can see, and again, bearing in mind you're looking obviously in space, up and down is it doesn't really have much impact. But if you imagine you're seeing something similar to this view, so you're seeing crystalline structures varying in size and distance from the ship, but they are the closest ones seem to be massive, and we're talking far bigger than the Vigilant. Possibly. Sorry, say that again.
Movement outside.
You can see energy. So you see these kind of lightning sparks here. So as you're watching, you can just see flashes of random light, but you can't tell what they are because, again, you're looking with your eyes. You're not looking with sensors. You're not looking with telescopes. You're just literally looking out of a window. But as you're watching, you're sort of taking in. So you see this, as I say, you see this blue. Or this light filling the space, these crystals, and then you see, as I say, flashes of light, and you can also see smaller objects, but you're not close enough to any of these objects to actually see what they are. But you can see dotted throughout, and again, there are, certainly as far as you can see from your limited viewpoints, there are many objects, but you can't tell what they are. They're just, you can see things sort of drifting about, but you can't tell what they are. The only things you can really make in any detail are the crystalline structures. And as I say, you see flashes of light, and there seems to be almost like asteroids or rock fragments. Again, bearing in mind you're looking through a window, you're not looking, you're not looking through a sensor.
Steve, I've got a horrible question, mate.
Hmm?
It's one of those questions that you're probably hoping that nobody is going to ask.
Well, no, go for it.
The onboard gravity, what's the situation, mate?
The onboard gravity is working.
Okay.
Or let me put it this way: you have gravity.
Yeah.
So in other words, you are not floating around. And I was wondering if anybody would actually pick up on that. And well done for picking up on it. But I'm not disappointed you asked that question.
Okay, cool. So it's not one of those story breaking. Well, usually the gravity is handled by
So
okay,
there is gravity, or at least let me put it this way: you are not floating off the deck.
Yep.
You have not, as far as you know. However, that is a mystery because obviously, as far as you know, the ship has no power, or at least no discernible power at the moment. So, if you think about that. So if Kalicia's sort of thinking, why are we not floating around. That you don't have an answer, but all you can say is that if you lift your foot and you put your foot down, then you feel a force keeping you attached to the deck.
Yeah. Okay.
Steve,
But rest assured, you have not broken anything.
Good.
I was just wondering whether anybody would ask that question.
I've got a couple of questions.
Go on.
First off, the light that we are seeing from the area of space that we're in, is it similar to being inside a nebula? Is it similar to what we would see inside it?
So a nebula is lit because you see gas, which is illuminated by starlight. This is not.
Right.
You see no star, or rather, whoever's looking through the window. I'm presuming you and Oster are going to look in. You see no stars. All you see are these crystals and these occasional flashes of energy and these objects that you can't make out because you're not close enough. But as far as you can see, and again, it might be that you are in a nebula and you just can't see through it. But it doesn't look like a nebula that's lit, if that makes sense. There is just light.
Right. The second question I've got is the ship rotating? Is it spinning?
Not that you can tell. So if you fix on a
that's what I'm saying.
Fixed point, it does not appear to be. It does appear to be drifting, so you can detect motion. So but again, bearing in mind that you can't really tell how far away any of these structures are or these objects are, but if you look at a fixed point, you get the impression that the ship is moving, but is drifting. If that makes sense. Yeah. But you're not spinning, you're not rotating, you're not twisting. It just seems to be drifting along.
If the torpedoes, which are independently powered, still have power like the phasers, what if we jury rig one and push it towards one of the energy signatures in an attempt to reboot our ship via the energy signature? Some kind of energy transfer via some kind of Tesla method of sending energy through the air.
So I'm going to listen back through all the episodes, and I reckon every single episode, Kevin tries to use the torpedoes in some way.
But no, so the other option is
I could neither confirm nor deny that position.
Dave,
torpedoes have power. Is that enough to jury rig our own little?
Okay. I mean, what do you? Okay, so there's a couple of. Sorry, Mike. Let me come back to that, Kevin. Mike, you said you had a couple more questions. So, what were your questions?
Yeah, questions. These crystals that I can see off. Do they seem similar to what was on similar type of material as to what was on? Never been a play. What's it? 3.
Candidate 3.
Candidate 3. We found the structures.
Yeah.
Does this seem to be the same material?
That is an excellent question. At this
the
point,
answer is no.
Excellent question. The answer is, well, again, you cannot. They don't certainly. Okay, let's put it this way. From your perspective, other than the fact that they appear to be, I mean, looking at that image, they are clearly crystalline, right? They are clearly crystals.
Yeah.
And obviously, I've cobbled together an image based upon some description, but
but what I'm getting at is
they don't seem to be the same crystal
material
as far as you can tell. But again, you're not looking at them with any sort of sensor. You're not looking at them with any sort of. You're looking with your eyes. To your eyes, they appear to be different. They don't appear to be the same, other than the fact that they are crystalline in structure.
Hold on a second, Steve. Did you put that together? That image?
Yeah.
Oh, well done, mate.
Well, it wasn't. I mean, thanks, but I a little bit of.
No, I figured you got some. It was a stock image or something, but
no. I put that together.
Nicely done.
Thank you.
What's the next thing we've got to sort out? Is the 2 cone trails
I think I just put that in for dramatic effect, but
better not be the ship's oxygen, mate. That better.
Well,
because they're chemtrails, we can get a couple of anti-vaxxers and ram them in the vents.
And he's back in the room. I mean, I'll tell you one thing, Karen, that's my favourite toy. I found a website which will basically remove the background from. No, not that website. It will remove the background from an image. So things like those contrails there. I just googled smoke, and then ran them through this website, and it just basically took out the image. So you get then a transparent GIF that you can just drop into anything.
Oh, lovely.
And same with the crystals and everything. It's just it just basically strips the image of a background, so then you can just obviously compose it. That took me about sort of 10 minutes to put together, I think, 10-15 minutes.
Good.
But anyway, I spend way too much time doing that shit,
Osterhagen, do you relay that information through the ship's new communication system?
As I'm looking out the window, everything I'll narrate what I'm seeing. So in essence, everything that Steve said, I've just essentially narrated everything I see visually.
So you've done it. So you've done that. So Kalish, you've set up your communications network. So Osterhagen or Kaz can basically go out into the corridor and kind of grab one of the ensigns and can start. They'll just start relaying that information.
As an easier way to do it, if the tricorder,
you're just going to go. The tricorder switched. Yeah, I mean, you haven't tried to use a tricorder. You've switched it on. It's got some power.
Yeah. Well, as I say, I'll run a sweep and scan.
What are you looking for?
Just general, nothing specific. Just taking in general readings first.
Okay, tell me what you're looking for, because as I said, ask me a question that the tricorder can tell you, because I need to know. Because you say I'm going to scan for everything, but what does that mean? Are because they're directional for one thing. So tricorders are a directional scanner, so you need to point it at something to get a reading.
Mike, it'd be good to know if the oxygen levels are changing. I mean, this could be a breathable atmosphere outside.
Well, I mean, the point is, if tricorders are working, everybody should be able things. So everybody has a tricorder, so you can make other signals. All I was going to do was take actually, I'll use the tricorder to make a visual recording of where we are.
No, that's good. That's all I'm asking you to do, is tell me specific. Because again, a tricorder, yes, it is a clever tool. So, you need to. What do you want it to do? So if you're gonna, that's a good visual recording. So yes, you can
record it. I'll just record it and then hand it off to the.
You point the tricorder out the window, and you essentially make a video, essentially of the scene.
Send it up to Naismith on the bridge, because then all he needs to do is just replay it.
Right, so you can do that. Meanwhile, so you're still in the hangar bay, right, Kaz?
Yeah. Yes.
So as you're doing this, you two have kind of seen this, and you're kind of trying to process what you're seeing. A junior engineer comes sort of stumbling into the room. You recognise this person as it's an enlisted crewman. Her name is Ballon. It's like a female junior engineer, and she sort of comes in. Oh, Commander. I need you to come with me to engineering. Lieutenant Prux has sent me to find you.
Okay.
Then I'm to report to the captain, but she asked me to find you first. Can you come with me?
I'll head to engineering.
Okay, so you go with her, and she sort of again leads you. It's on the same. Essentially, you can access engineering on the same deck, I believe. So as you walk down the corridor, you see Kalish's makeshift chain of communication. So there are crewmen sort of, at sort of, I don't know, 5-10 meter intervals down the corridor, and they're sort of passing reports backwards and forwards. It's a bit like Chinese whispers, but by the time it gets to the bridge, there's a purple cat loose in. But anyway, so you see this going on. So you enter the engineering section. If you just bear with me, I'll just quickly like to bring up a little scene change just to keep things interesting, because it looks good. Right. So yeah, you enter. Oh, here we can go. Right, so you enter engineering, and first thing you notice as you enter the engineering room is so Prux seems to have rigged up some emergency lighting using portable power units, similar to the ones that you had in the runabout. So she's rigged up some, like I say, literally they've got like lights on sort of they're on like tripods. These kind of Yeah, I think we've seen them in the show before, and they use them for like archaeological things. But they're on tripods, and she's got them hooked. You can see that she's got them hooked up to power units so that she's got light. But you notice that the warp reactor is completely dark. There's no reaction going on at all that you can see. She's got several of her crew members. They're kind of milling around, frankly, because there's not much for them to do. So some of them have gone to assist the efforts that Kalish has organised with the communication chain. But she's got a couple of her. So you see that she's got Ensign McHugh with her, who's the red-headed sort of de facto assistant chief engineer. She's one of the watch officers, so she's with Prux, and you can also see Rollins is looking annoyed in a court. He's sort of off to one side, looking a bit annoyed with his arms folded. And she sees you as you enter the room, as you enter the section. She comes over to you and says, "Oh, Commander, what can you tell me? Where the hell are we?"
I have absolutely no idea. We appear to be somewhere. There's a light outside. Check the systems on the runabout. No, they're just as dead as the main reactor.
That's the thing. That's the thing, Commander. I've never seen anything like it. It's almost as if the antimatter reaction just isn't happening. We've tried everything we can think of to
we had
restart the engine, but not only the main reactor is just completely inert. The power, everything's in place. The linkages are there. The power system is there.
Have you tried to reverse the polarity?
Damn it! Why didn't we think of that?
Is it? Turn around to us. So, do you think the reaction is being affected by an outside influence?
It's the only thing I can think of, Commander. Believe me, we've had the core practically, ripped to pieces in the last sort of half hour, and there's nothing wrong. It's all there. It's all functioning. The crystals are intact. There is just no reaction.
Can we figure out if there's what is stopping it? What the actual is there a way to block that outside interference? Can we
put in a Faraday cage?
Yeah, effectively.
Could we make some smart ass Faraday cage and put it in?
Or change modulate the shield frequency, or so if we had shields, if we had power. But
could we use the power from the torpedoes? Because they should not.
The problem is, Commander. The problem is, sir. We thought of that. We ripped open one of the.
The antimatter is inert.
Checked one of the probes, and again, the power source is just inert. It's all there. The mechanics are there. The equipment is there. It's all intact. Nothing's been damaged. It's just not producing the reaction that we expect to see. And the same is true of the impulse engines. The fusion reaction is just not producing power. So maybe you're right. So maybe we need to think of a way to block.
And yet we seem to have gravity.
We noticed that, but it's not being provided by the ship.
Mm.
The ships, all of the ship's core systems are down. The only good news is that life support is also offline. But we think we can cannibalize some of the power, some of the portable reactors to at least give us rudimentary life support and get the air circulating. As it stands, we probably have 12 hours of good life support, just given the volume of air in the ship.
So,
interestingly, the temperature doesn't seem to be an issue either. We haven't noticed any noticeable drop in ambient temperature, but I've got two of my people working on jury rigging the life support system to run off emergency power units, which might give us some more time, but we really need to figure out a way to get this back online.
So in essence, all energy and all forces have been reversed.
Not reversed, they're just not there.
Well,
they're not producing. So the Vigilant engines deal with matter antimatter annihilation, generates energy.
This might be
if there's no power powering the gravity, we should be floating. However, if you reverse the force, there is a gravity, if that makes sense. So if we've gone to an area that all of our power and forces are opposite, because power has been
shit. Just had a
What was
thought. Basically, what you're describing is the effects within. You guys remember the amoeba episode from the original series?
Or the immunity syndrome.
Yeah, it's where the Enterprise encountered a huge single cell amoeba. Now that was in an area of space. Basically, the power supplies were reversed.
Yeah.
So you had antimatter, sort of like when you apply it was everything was screwed up basically. But when you applied power, it was actually reducing power. So yeah, everything was anti. So the area of space that they were in was anti to the way things work in our universe.
Yes.
Could this be a similar?
That's why we've got gravity, because the power source has turned off the gravity. Therefore, natural forces should make us float. But because everything's in reverse, natural forces are actually having the reverse effect. I.e., that's why we've got gravity.
The other thing,
I don't know about that. I think there's just a gravity source outside.
Well, the easiest way to find that out is to suit some of your security guys up and go and do a visual inspection.
Yeah, I think we need to know what's going on outside. Get some readings from outside.
You three red jets, suit up.
Suit up, go outside, and then just record, because then we'll know whether we're in orbit around a planet. Which, to be honest, if we were in close orbit or something like that, that could be supplying the gravity. Or
so, do you want to? That's a good plan of action. Do you want to report back to the bridge, perhaps, and let Naismith know what's going on?
Yeah, basically, I'll grab the engineer. We'll head for the bridge.
Yeah. Okay. And we'll have that conversation we've just had.
I mean,
yeah. So she looks at McHugh and says, "Well, keep an eye on things. If anything changes, let me know." And she gestures at one of Kalish's people who are out in the corridor, who's sort of ready to pass on messages. And then then you head for the bridge.
What I was going to say is Naismith told us to report back in 30 minutes. Now I'm sure 30 minutes is up.
Yeah, it's probably more or less. I mean, again, none of you've got chronometers, but yeah, I mean, being certainly Osterhagen, being a Vulcan, I'm sure can probably keep track of time pretty accurately. So yeah, you head back to the bridge. So Kalish, are you going to accompany them, or are you making other arrangements?
Sorry, accompany them outside?
No, I mean to the bridge first of all, just to report back to Naismith.
So technically, I was on the bridge. Once I saw my security guys going, I would have been on the bridge. So the brief conversation we just had, it probably would have happened now. Okay,
cool. So so then in that case, so Osterhagen and Kaz, you arrive on the bridge with the engineer in tow, and as Karen says, you have that same conversation. So you report that basically it seems that the problem you have is that the matter antimatter reaction is just not functioning. She reports again, there's no evidence of damage, there's no evidence of equipment failure. It's just not happening for whatever reason. The physics are not generating the power they should be generating. And again, the gravity thing is mentioned. So again, she confirms that there is, the ship isn't generating gravity. And she also reports to him about the fact that she's got people working on trying to get some sort of rudimentary life support system set up to try and. But again, you have got some time. It's not immediately critical.
Are we going to deploy some makeshift solar sails?
I'm glad you said that, because I was just about to make the same joke.
But that's actually a fairly good idea.
Well,
That's actually a fairly good
it's certainly
idea.
an option. Again, that obviously assumes that solar energy works in the same way, but it's worth a try. It's something you could certainly
when
think
you
about.
looked outside, did you see any solar energy? Did you see any suns, any stars?
No,
Well, there was.
You
did not see stars. You saw light. There was light, but you did not see stars. But as we said, it could be that you're inside some sort of a nebula. So the kind of light sky is in fact nebula. But again, bearing in mind you only had a brief glimpse through a small window. As you say, you're probably going to have to actually go outside and have a look and see what's going on.
So yes, my guys will be prepared to go outside and take some readings. What I'm also suggesting we do is, if an engineer can set up a way of using some of these lights, that we can attach them to the outside of the ship with a Morse code signal that we can broadcast. Because if anyone else is trapped out here and they are observing the outside, they might see us sending a Morse code signal.
Excellent plan.
Can I just indulge in a bit of meta thinking here?
Yeah. You can indulge in whatever you like. Yeah.
We got that message from Reddick, or at least
Reddick,
and the message from the princess or whatever, whoever she was.
Right, her name was, just bear with me a second. Her name was Ash Tamalia, if you remember.
Yeah, they said they were trapped.
Yeah,
imprisoned. What if we're inside the prison?
Yeah, possibly.
What if it's an energy field or a bubble of an area of space, and that's the prison, and we are inside it?
I mean, certainly that fits the facts, as that fits what you've seen. Let's put it that way. There's nothing you've seen that would not fit that theory. But
basically, we're in the Phantom Zone.
Yeah, any second now. Monel's going to go flying past in a second.
Yeah,
with his excellent red suit and blue cape.
That's just a thought.
Sorry, was that joke a bit? Was that a bit too niche? That reference? I don't know whether anyone got that.
No. I totally got it. I just ignored it.
Surely, if you were in the Phantom Zone, though, you'd be in a flat, two-dimensional piece of glass spinning around with all your faces crammed together, wouldn't you?
Yeah, but you'd be in here with whatever her name was as well, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I can't remember now. Whoever played.
Anyway,
you can't remember her name. You can't fantasize over her.
Yeah, Sarah Douglas, right? Sarah Douglas. Yeah.
Back to reality.
Back in this reality, at least.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Hold on a minute. Russ is typing. This is likely to be a comment about
Sarah Douglas, isn't it? It's going to be.
It's fine. I can edit that out. It's fine. Oh, nope.
Mention a sci-fi female and Russell will start typing.
I know, he's all over it, isn't he?
Where did that come out?
He's out. PCL.
All right, see you later, Russ.
Is he typing?
It's a shame he's about to go offline. Does he know that Caroline Munro's hosting a new film show on Talking Pictures TV this Friday?
Tits out for the lads.
Do you not know that?
Is he posting?
He's in the chat. He's in the Vigilant chat.
Discord.
The text channel in Discord.
I'm not actually seeing anything.
So if he's still listening, Caroline Munro is hosting a late night film show on Friday night. But I think they're showing like a Frankenstein movie or something, or The Mummy or something. So, but she's introducing it.
You don't want me? I'll interrupting your game.
No, you can interrupt. Go ahead. I can always edit it out. It's fine. I mean, I won't, but I could.
You won't, though. That's the thing. I could say incredibly naughty words, and you would be powerless to stop me.
You're just
sheer ennui and laziness on your part,
and the fact that nobody listens to this anyway. So it's fine.
True. It's true. Anyway, people. Good night.
Yeah, have a good one.
Cheers.
See
you later.
See you later. Cheers. Naismith takes all of this on board, and bearing in mind he's an NPC, he kind of says, "Okay, what are your recommendations?" So he says, Lieutenant Prux, I think you need to get back to engineering, see if you can come up with a way of, as per Osterhagen's suggestion, see if you can come up with some sort of Faraday cage to see if you can block whatever force is
acting on the
yeah. So she doesn't look very optimistic. However, she heads back down to engineering to get onto that. And so, right, what would the rest of you like to suggest?
Before she goes,
yeah.
I want to now of the forces that are available under general physics, there is an odd force that you might be able to capitalize on.
Is this the Osterhagen force?
No. If you
does this involve torpedoes by any chance?
No. If you take 2 Faraday cages,
also does this test the theory?
I know this is the theory. If you take a ball bearing and put it through a tube, there is an unnatural force which will slow that ball bearing down as it comes in contact with the tube. If you were, it's sort of friction, but NASA were trying to describe it and couldn't.
Is it? It's not called. It's not umami, is it?
I can't remember what it's called. But anyway, so if you would take 2 Faraday cages and have a very small gap between them, so the 1 Faraday cage should hopefully nullify the energy within. The 2nd Faraday cage, if you have enough gap, may create a secondary wall of non-energy, shall we say, to prevent it coming in. So you kind of like have a double layer, almost an insulated, with having a strange phenomenon in the middle of the two, if that makes sense.
Okay.
I'll describe it like that. But essentially,
so what you can do if you have a theory / plan. What you can do is we can frame that as a extended task that you can try and go through with the assistance of engineering. The only issue you've got at the moment is you don't really know what the force is that's preventing. So is it physics? Is it a physical law? Is it you just don't know.
So
I'm certainly willing for you to go and work on have a crack at it.
I've got the talent of testing a theory.
You have.
I'll capitalise on that.
I can't even remember. What does that? Let me have a look and see what that does. I have got it written down here. Just bear with me 1 secondo. When you attempt a task,
as it's COVID, I will be marking my own theory to test rather than send it off to be adjudicated by somebody else.
Indeed. So what it means, what testing a theory? Okay, no, it is definitely applicable. So what testing a theory does is it says when you attempt a task using engineering or science, you may roll 1 additional d20, so long as you succeeded at a previous task covering the same scientific or technological field earlier in the same adventure. So if you were to go and work with engineering, that would come into play. So you'd have to make an initial success, if you like, and then you'd get a bonus d20 to aid in the extended task.
Because to say you could frame that around the warp engine, because you helped me start the warp engine up, and it says you use that, so you can say you can took the knowledge, you use that, and then.
God damn you, Mike, for paying attention. But yes, you could certainly do that. I'd allow that. I'd allow it.
Oh,
yeah, that's fine.
Very generous.
I know you wouldn't, but no, that's fine. I mean, to be fair though, it's reasonable. Again, this is Star Trek science is not real science, so not all of it anyway. So okay, I mean, you can certainly you would have to assist engineering though, because again, Prux is very knowledgeable in her field. However, this is theoretical. You're talking about theoretical physics.
Yeah,
you would have to get involved.
Way out there for the physical physics.
Yeah, it's a kind of
you would have to get involved on this, but I would certainly be okay for you to have a crack at that. Let's come back to that in a second then, because if that's going to be an extended task, that will take us a few minutes to get through. So we can what we can do is we can come back to that in a second. So right, the rest of you. So what is your next plan of action? Because you were talking about having a look outside the ship. Is that still what you want to do?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Get suited up and go and have a look. Go and have a look at physically outside the ship.
Yeah. So
Okay,
I'd like to send a team out to take readings. I'd also like them to set up an SOS light beacon.
Excellent. Okay, so I think that's yes. I'm glad you reminded me, because that's I like that idea a lot. That's
first thing we want to do though is actually we're not just going to open the airlock with guys in suits. Open up, see, and take readings first before we send anybody out.
Okay.
Because if it's affecting our engines, you send someone outside and it might just go, yeah, you know what, the electrical system of your human body doesn't work. They're dying. So, you just want to make sure there'd be no physical effects of someone actually going outside on the hull.
Yeah, take readings before we fully commit. Yeah.
Okay, so to do this, the best egress point is on deck 4. So basically, where you have the main landing, you have the landing ramp, which is so basically when the ship is landed, you have the essentially there's a gangway which comes down, and so but obviously there is obviously an airlock. So there is an airlock at the front of the ship. On the war, they call it the warhead. But if you're going to send a couple of people out, probably the easiest thing to do is to do it at the, as I say, on the underside, which is at the deck 4 level. So, assuming you're okay with that, you get your team gathered, and they will obviously have to go down and get suited up with environment suits. That'll take a few minutes while they do that. And in the meantime, Prux sends a couple of her engineering team down with a couple of portable power units, along with some lights for rigging. So this is all, and this is pretty standard. So what you can do is they can simply attach the lights to hard points on the hull. Again, you take, let's say it takes you sort of 30 minutes or so to work out a plan and to brief a couple of your guys on what to do.
Yeah.
So who's going to be down there with them? So are you going down to support them? Mike, Kaz, are you going down? And
yeah, I'll go out.
Or are you staying on the bridge? What's the plan?
No, I'll go down and I'm going to go out as well.
Okay.
Ask them
cool.
to do. I wouldn't ask them to do something I wouldn't.
Fair enough. So what's Kalish going to do? Kalish, are you going as well, or are you going to?
I've lost people in the past.
I think I'll be part of the team. Yeah, and I'll take maybe 4 of my guys with me or something.
Sorry, what was that, Mike? You said?
All I was going to say is I wouldn't ask them to do stuff that I wouldn't do myself, because I've lost people in the past, but that way.
Okay, fine with I mean, look, Naismith is Naismith is frankly feeling a little bit powerless at the moment, literally, because there's not much he can do. Absolutely. So he's fully supportive of that. So right, you all assemble in the staging area on deck 4. So you're all suited up with the full environment suits on. You've got one of the engineers is suited up, so I guess you've got a couple of security people. You've got Kalish and Kaz.
We're taking any equipment we need, sort of like toolkits.
Yep.
Stuff like that, just to set stuff up.
And as Mike said, we'll try and take outside readings before we commit to going outside.
Okay.
Just
set a tricorder up, put it in an airlock, and then
make sure.
So obviously, Mike, what was your thought? Sorry, before we proceed.
No, just the thought was we haven't got effectively like GoPros. We can bounce on the exterior of the ship and hardwire them back in and cables back into the ship.
All of those devices will work for a time, because again, if they've got their own power supply, what you've seen so far suggests that they will work. But obviously, given that, and again, obviously we're talking about 24th century batteries, so they're not going to be like AA A's. But they will have a limited, probably a few hours of use before they will drain. But certainly, you can. Anything like that is absolutely fine. Okay, so you're all gathered on the ramp, and how do you want it? So you'll have to assemble in the airlock, and obviously you're going to have to open the airlock manually. So basically, what you'll need to do is you'll all need to tether yourselves, because obviously when you open the airlock, then the air will escape violently into the vacuum. So
I'm assuming
you need to make sure that you're.
I'm assuming our magnetic boots to work.
Yeah, they will work. Actually, you're right. I forgot. Yeah, they've got magnetic boots, so they'll work again. With the caveat that all of this stuff will work for a time, so that's fine. Yeah, you can activate magnetic boots, and then one of the engineer who's got sort of a pack with the it's got two of the power units on the deck, and he will operate the manual airlock release. So you close the inner airlock, and he then, as I say, he's not able to depressurize it because the airlock system isn't functioning. So he sort of, again, manually cranks the L handle, pulls the hatch, and the airlock opens, and no air escapes. So there is no violent expulsion of air from the airlock. It just, the door opens.
I'm just going to run a scan. Is there?
And you before you do that, before you do that, obviously, so the hatch opens, and obviously you then realise that there is light, because of course you've been in this dark, and you've had hand beacons on inside the airlock, and as you open this door, because obviously this gangway hatch is actually quite large, and what you could do, in fact, is you can actually deploy the ramp. So you can walk down onto the ramp. Does that make sense? Because this ramp is designed to essentially drop from the aft of the ship down onto to a planet's surface.
Yeah.
So it's like a Chinook. It's like a Chinook, like a ramp at the back of a Chinook or something. So you can actually deploy the ramp down. So you can actually use that as a platform to work on.
Okay.
Steve.
Yeah.
On a whim, I'm checking for atmosphere.
Okay. There is an atmosphere. There is air. There is air pressure. There is air.
Is it breathable air?
Yeah, it's certainly equivalent. Yeah, it's certainly equivalent. It's breathable atmosphere.
And the temperature?
It is 27 degrees centigrade, thereabouts. It's hot, but it's not. It's not deadly hot. Mike, run a tricorder roll. So just make a. What I'm going to do is get you to make a roll, and then you can ask me some more. You can spend some momentum if you want more information. Again, you've got to target your question with the tricorder, because although the tricorder is very clever, I need to know what you want it to tell you. But if you make a, in fact, actually, Osterhagen, are you there as well? I know you're going to engineering, aren't you? So
I'm going to engineering. That is correct.
Yeah. Okay. So right. So if you want to make basically, any of you, if either of you two want to jump in with a tricorder roll, you can certainly do so.
What would that be off?
Okay, so you would use probably insight and science, I would argue.
That gives me 12. I'm just going to run a standard scan.
Yep.
Shit, hang on, I put a watches on. Ignore that.
All right.
Because
we got two successes, so.
Yeah, all right, but ignore any focuses.
Okay, that's fine.
I don't have anything that would work as a focus. Makes sense.
Okay. Right. So okay. Okay. So you make a tricorder scan. So what is it you want to know? So I'll give you some basic. I'll tell you what, I'll give you some basic information. If you want to ask me anything more specific, it'll cost you a point of momentum. All right.
Okay.
Okay. So the scan tells you that there is atmosphere composed of 76% nitrogen, 23% oxygen. Essentially, it's more or less exactly equivalent to Class M planet atmosphere. Certainly breathable for extended periods.
Yeah.
No harmful levels of radiation. So there is background radiation, which is comparable to the radiation you would expect on a planetary surface. there is obviously you can see light. You can't detect a source for the light, certainly not within the tricorder's range. However, there is light filling the, you can see that with your eyes. There is a gravitational force. You can't tell where that is coming from. However, you can detect, again, your senses tell you there's gravity because you're not floating about.
Yeah.
And other than that, that's about all the tricorder can tell you at a basic scan. But you're confident that the atmosphere and the condition, the air pressure and so on is certainly breathable.
Lift a face mask on me helmet.
Okay. You instantly die. No.
Pulse readings.
Fooled ya. Yeah, it's Q. Q has confused your tricorder. No. Okay, so you sort of hesitantly, they probably some of the other members of the team kind of look at you in horror as you start releasing your helmet, but you lift it up and you kind of...
We can get a nuke.
Yeah. You can always get a new helmsman, can't you? No, you lift the faceplate up, and yes, it is obviously breathable because you don't die. So, and in fact, it actually is quite, I would say, pleasant. I mean, obviously, you begin to feel the heat because although because obviously your suit is heated, because an environment suit generally is required to provide you with heat to keep you from freezing to death. So you probably would want to actually turn that off because you're feeling warm. As soon as you open up the helmet, you begin to feel quite warm because obviously there is heat from somewhere. Again, it's quite pleasant temperature. In fact, it's actually probably slightly on the high side. So again, it's almost, it's like a really sunny day. If that makes sense.
I just thought something which would have been useful, but never mind. As I was saying, you say the power systems on the suits are still are working. Yeah?
At the moment, yeah, because again, independent power sources seem to be working, so they seem to be working.
Does the communication system, does the comm system in the suit work?
You can try it. Who do you want to speak to?
Well, just wondered. Well, I mean, I'm assuming it's one of the tests we would have do. When we suited up, we would have.
Yeah, I mean, the communication is working between the other members of your team. So, would it? You obviously, you will do a communications check.
What I was going to do, what I should have thought of and didn't do, was we could have given the suit or at least a suit helmet to the bridge, so we could have communicated with people on the bridge, leave them with a helmet, so they're in on the, or at least the captain's in on the what's it? But you think of that? Never mind. Oh well.
Okay. I mean, do you want to spend a point of momentum to retrofit that?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll let you do that. So I'll take a point of momentum off you. But okay. So right, we'll assume that you thought of that, and so the captain has got a essentially sitting there with a helmet on.
Yeah. Or at least he's got the comm system is wired or whatever. Anyway, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, so he's on the channel, so he can hear you. So obviously he can hear your report. So yeah.
So I walk to the edge of the ramp and look over the edge.
Okay. Right. Well, you see.
I do want to point out that I've got cat-like reflexes, and I'm.
Yeah. So, okay. So you basically. No, you pretty much see what you saw before. So again, So
there's nothing underneath us.
No. So the ship is floating. The ship is you're not on a planet. The ship is suspended in. I'm going to use the word space for want of a better word. It's not really space, but you're in a space, a volume. You cannot see any discernible edge to this. So in other words, you're not in a. You don't see a cloud boundary. You don't see a nebula edge. You don't see any stars. You look all around you as much as you can, and you don't get the impression of stars. You just see that the space is suffused with light, but you cannot see a source. There's no shadow because the light seems to be coming from almost everywhere at once. So it's not like you can. If you look, that there's obviously your shadow is cast by a light source, so you cannot really determine where the light is coming from. It's just everywhere. The most obvious feature that you see in this area is these crystals, and as you look around you, you actually get a feeling of almost discomfort, because you sort of realise that you're on this ramp hanging off the back of your ship. There is gravity, so if you were to step off the edge of this platform, you would presumably fall, although the ship is suspended, so you're not quite sure how that works. And as you look around, these crystals are as you know, you get even more of a scale of the size of these crystals. And again, you can't really tell distance because, you know, they seem to be enormous. And as I say, they certainly seem to be, you know, way bigger than the ship. And you can see these crystals everywhere, in every direction you look. You can see the same, let's say, use the word terrain, i.e. crystals are energy discharges the distance.
I go meta thinking again.
Yeah.
Again, this is just thinking out loud. Those we saw the visuals representation of, or we supposedly saw the what's the species called again?
They're Tilical.
Tilical.
So they were a humanoid. They were sort of slender humanoid, dark hair.
Or is that what they just showed us? Could they be crystalline?
Again, it was if you remember, it was a sort of projection. Yeah. So you don't know what their true form is because it was obviously a projection.
What if what we're looking at is those crystals are their true form?
Could be, but again, you can't tell because these things are, again, you're not near enough to any of them to meaningfully get any sense of them, other than that they are obviously crystalline.
Can I scan them?
You're too far. The tricorder doesn't have the range. The tricorder only has a range of a few 100 meters at best.
Steve, relative movement, are we moving in relation to them? Are they moving in relation to one another? Is there any sort of movement with our visual sort of
excellent question.
landmark?
Excellent. So the ship seems to be essentially drifting slowly. Again, if you fix your vision on a point in the distance, you know, if you look at one of the crystals, keep your eye on it, you can sort of determine very slight movement. But the ship seems to be moving slowly. But it is. Say again.
Is it a decaying movement, or is it kind of like, are we almost a ship on a flat piece of water? Or are we slowly sinking, if that makes sense? Are we decaying?
You don't seem to be descending. You seem to be on a level plane. It just seems that the ship is moving, but very slowly in relation to any point of reference you can make. As I mentioned, so yeah, it seems as if the crystals are not moving and you are moving, but it is hard to be sure because they are distant, and any movement that you're discerning is quite small and slow.
Yeah.
So the best you can see is that the ship seems to be moving rather than them. But again, they could be moving in relation to each other. However, you do notice, as I mentioned earlier, there are also if you look around, you can see like rocks. Essentially, I mean, I use the word asteroid, seems misleading. So there seems to be like debris, like large rocks. Again, some distance away, nothing close to the ship. But they do also seem to be moving independently, but again, very slowly. So you can see that they seem to just be drifting, not necessarily in the same direction that you're moving, in random directions. Again, if you spend a few minutes looking, you can see these objects. And one other thing you do notice is, as I mentioned before, there are some smaller objects, and you can't really, again, you're not close enough to any of them to really make them out. But you could probably try and make a tricorder scan, because these objects some of them seem to be closer than the crystals for sure.
Has anybody got binoculars or maybe a telescope?
It's not really a Star Trekky thing, is it? Binoculars, because they generally use sensors.
No, but they may have someone somewhere.
You do see them. You do see them on away missions, and they'll put sort of visors up to their faces, and they'll just scan the horizon.
What I was about to say was, I think it's perfectly reasonable to assume that given again what we've seen in like Star Trek Discovery with the sort of environment suits, that probably the faceplate probably has magnification built in, because obviously we know that the suits have sort of Are you going to tell me that Discovery's not canon? Is that what you're going to?
No. I was going to say, sure. It's considering this is Star Trek. Surely, someone somewhere on this ship has got an antique telescope.
Yeah, but that's true. But you didn't bring that. But I would, as I say, I'm agreeing with you. I think it's quite reasonable that the helmets have got built-in.
Yeah.
I want to not say binoculars, but basically you've got visual enhancement. So if you want, you can use the suit. So even you, Kaz, if you pop the faceplate down again, you can try and zoom in on one of these objects if you want.
If you pop into Osterhagen's cabin, there is an antique decathlon monocular,
along with his collection of clay pipes.
You're having a collection of clay pipes. And my famous Prodigy albums.
Right, is somebody going to? What do you want to do? Do you want to have a look at one of these things in more detail?
Yes.
Okay, right. So you flip your faceplate down and you kind of look around until you spot what seems to be the nearest. Now, while this is going on, the engineering, the other guy. So the engineering crewman is climbing up onto the upper hull. Because obviously there are you've got access, you've got ladders and stuff on the hull, of course. But he's obviously tied him.
Surely there'd be a topside airlock you could go out.
Well, yeah, but you've gone through the underside airlock. What I'm saying is he's kind of preparing to rig some lights. A couple of the security guys are helping him. Obviously, they're being very careful because, as I say, you're not in zero gravity as far as you can tell. So they've they've tethered themselves to the hull and they're kind of working. Just so you know what's going on around you as you're doing your thing.
All I'm going to say is just wait for it, Captain.
Aye!
What was the last
Captain,
thing you said?
look, it's aye!
Yeah, exactly.
Right, so you you pop down the old visor and you focus on one of these things, and as you look at it, so the computer sort of enhances it tries to zoom in, and it seems to be struggling with the light conditions. Because again, these things are normally designed for use in outer space. However, it begins to zoom in, and you realise that what you're looking at is in fact a body. And as you look more closely, you have a nagging feeling that you've seen this species before, and you realise that this is a Lormian. So you remember from Organ 3. Yeah, the Lormians were the native population on Organ 3 that the Venture was trying to evacuate.
Yeah.
And as you're looking at this Lormian, this Lormian moves, and you realise that he's in fact alive.
Yeah.
And we're gonna leave it there for tonight. Thank you for listening to this episode of Starship Vigilant. Kaz was played by Mike. David Osterhagen was played by Kevin. Kolish was played by Kerin. Our music is Fanfare for Space by Kevin MacLeod, which is licensed under a Creative Commons license. See you next time.